Hello. As the first negative speaker, I will begin by refuting the affirmative's main claims and end with a workability claim. The affirmative's first claim is that illegal immigration negatively impacts public schools. The question we should be asking is how it negatively affects the public school system. And the main source there is cost. In terms of money, it is correct that immigrants cause public schools to spend more money on these children, obviously because there are more kids to pay for. And it is not a question of whether we should educate these children or not, because as we know from the Plyler v. Doe case in 1982, children are qualified and entitled to equal education. It is a question of where we should allocate our money. If the only problem is how much money it is costing us, then maybe we should not be spending money on this useless wall. And maybe federal government should reconsider where it concentrates its money. Because according to the U.S. Department of Education, of the $1.15 trillion being spent on elementary and secondary schooling, the federal government's contribution is 8%. If it is true that illegal immigration negatively affects public schools, why are we wasting money on a wall when we can use that money to help pay for these extra students and deal with illegal immigration in another smarter way? To the point that undocumented students bring down native-born students in classrooms, from an article by the Public Policy Institute of California, Laura Hill states that immigrants in California often speak English quite well. Among immigrants who arrived in the last 10 years, 6% speak only English, and an additional 47% report that they speak English very well or well. The most common language spoken among California immigrants is Spanish, 53 reporting speaking Spanish at home, and 20% of whom report speaking English not at all. So although there are a few, maybe like that 20% that don't speak at all English, most of them are already either used to English or they've been taught in Mexico. They are not affecting other students' experiences in school. They just cost more. The affirmative second claim includes that illegal immigration is a fiscal burden to taxpayers. Although there is some truth in this statement, there is a generalization being made about all illegal immigrants. Not all illegal immigrants cause this burden, and as a matter of fact, incoming immigrants are decreasing their burden. According to the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, a study in 2016 states that the children of immigrants, the second generation, are among the strongest economic and fiscal contributors in the U.S. population, contributing more in taxes than either their parents or the rest of the native-born population. They claim that taxpayers must pay more for illegal immigrants, but they are one of the biggest contributors to America's economy. According to the USDA, undocumented immigrants make up more than half of the hired labor on farms, and they get paid much less than the minimum wage. In a 2017 research conducted by the Cornwall Farm Worker Program, 30 New York dairy farmers told us that they turned to undocumented workers because they were unable to find and keep reliable U.S. citizens to do the jobs. A study commissioned by the dairy industry suggested that if federal labor and immigration policies reduced the number of foreign-born workers by 50%, more than 3,500 dairy farms would close, leading to a big drop in milk production and a spike in the prices of 30%. Total elimination of immigrant labor would increase milk prices by 90%. So the U.S. farming industries rely on illegal immigration, and most of these illegal immigrants don't even have benefits that taxpayers allegedly pay for. Illegal immigrants are not eligible for health care programs, and they're not eligible to receive federal subsidies because they don't want to get risk getting caught and getting deported. The affirmative's third claim is that benefits of tomorrow will outweigh the negatives of today. Not only is this a flawed claim, but I am willing to argue that the border wall will only place us in a much worse position than today. They are contradicting themselves by making this claim because this wall is not a one-time cost. We must pay to build the wall, then we must maintain it for years and years to come. Already, as we speak right this moment, our national debt is increasing, and by having to maintain the incoming border wall, our debt will increase even further. So what I'm saying is that building a wall will be a direct cause to an increase in our national debt on an annual basis. Going back to their second claim that illegal immigration is a fiscal burden to taxpayers, why don't we think of it in a different way? An actual fiscal burden to taxpayers is the national debt, and as the national debt increases, so will the fiscal burden. I also want to refer back to the first claim of public schooling. If we want to talk about future benefits, then maybe we should open our arms to undocumented students of illegal immigrants undocumented students, and consider the possibility that schooling them can result in a better society for the future of America. Over the past 20 years, studies show that the future benefits of the undocumented students of illegal immigrants outweigh the cost of educating them now because of that second generation I mentioned earlier. For this reason, I believe we should look at future benefits in a different way. The thought of a wall to separate two countries seems to be the most basic and surface level idea that ignores all other aspects of life. In terms of workability, the border is not a feasible option because of what the wall is being built on. Firstly, we must talk about how the wall will disrupt the 1,254 miles of the Rio Grande in terms of legality and practicality. Legally speaking, the 1970 treaty to resolve pending boundary differences and maintain the Rio Grande and Colorado River as the international boundary does not permit this wall to be built without Mexico's discretion. Furthermore, this treaty prohibits the construction of anything that may cause an obstruction to the normal flow of the river or its flooding patterns. If we violate this treaty, it will lead to several court challenges, and still there are more than 90 such lawsuits in the southern Texas alone, still open from the 2008 effort to build a fence there, a steel fence. Now, let me express the problem with building on this landscape. If we build the wall next to the Rio Grande, we are dealing with major flood problems. This means we would come to the solution of building the wall miles away from the river to avoid the wall acting as a dam or disrupting the flow of the river. Now, with this in mind, what we have is a huge barrier blocking access to the Rio Grande and much land taken from the Texans to be turned into no man's land between the river and the wall. For illegal and impractical reasons, the border wall should not be built. And I haven't even got to start on the miles and miles of mountains.